All right, just going to jump into these and see how well we do. So I got to get my pen working here. Here we go. So the 2's out in front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that 2 there, and I'm going to draw a big square root. 20 is the same thing, excuse me, as 4 times 5. 15 is the same thing as 5 times 3. And then I have k squared times k squared. So I'm breaking it down because I don't want to work with big numbers right now. Just not feeling it. You know, it's a Monday. So 2's still out front. And now I have square root of 4. I'm going to leave that. 5 times 5 is 25. And there's 3. And then this is going to be k to the 4th. Now, that's 2. It's still out there. But here we go. What is the square root of 4? 2. What is the square root of 25? 5. Real quick, what is the square root of 3? It's the square root of 3. And then the square root of k to the 4th should be k squared. Because 4 divided by that 2, since the square root, is 2. So then, 4 times 5 is 20. So I have 20 k squared root 3. So we're multiplying, and now we have variables involved. So just an extra step. That's all. We can handle it. Number 2. I am going to put this all underneath a big root. That negative still has to stay out front. So I'm going to try and make sure I remember that. Why not show an example of just multiplying it out? All right, 10 times 6 is 60. And then a squared times a is a to the 3rd. All right, now I have to break this down. All right, so this is what we're going to do here. That negative stays there. This is 60 is the same thing as 4 times 15. 4 is the biggest square that goes into it. And then a to the 3rd. Since this is a squared out here, or it's a square root, sorry, I need a squared times a. Just like the last video, the previous video. So it's still going to say negative out here. What is the square root of 4? 2. What is the square root of a squared? A! And then I have the root. I'm going to put 15a in there because you can't do anything with the 15 or the a inside the square root. So this is our simplified radical there. Just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Scroll. All right. And we're back. So, on number 5, did I skip? I must have skipped a couple there, didn't I? Yeah, those are. Yeah, I'll do one of them. So, square root. So when I multiply these, I get 9 r to the 5th. All right, so that means I'm going to break this down. Well, the 9 I can leave alone because I can take the square root of 9. But r, I need to break down to r to the 4th times r. Because this way, I can actually work with this. So what is the square root of 9? 3. What is the square root of r squared, or r to the 4th? It's r squared. And then I have root r left in there because we can't do anything with that. All right, next up. 3 is hanging out. And then in here I have the square root of 10n to the 4th. Now, there's only one thing I can do on this problem. Well, the 3 is not it. The 3 stays there. What is the square root of n to the 4th? It should be n squared. And the square root of 10, because 10, you can't take the square root of it. It does not break down. All right, so that's those two taken care of. Now, I'm going to do number 5 because you see 2 negatives. We haven't worked with that in a while. What is negative 5 times negative 3? It's negative 15. Thank you very much. And then this will be the square root of, I'm going to go ahead and multiply here. 6b times 6b to the 3rd times 6b will be 36b to the 4th. Now, this is going to be nice. The negative 15 stays there, but we have to be able to square root or take the square root of some of those things. What's the square root of 36? It's 6. What is the square root of b to the 4th? It is actually b squared. So, one thing left to do. What is negative 15 times 6? That'll be negative 90. B squared. And that's that. All right, you can probably do number 6 on your own. So I'm going to scroll down. All right, and now they get more difficult because we're talking about third roots of things. So we're going to break things down, work with the smaller ones because those are easier. All right, so I can already see that that's the third root right there, and that's easy to take the third root of that. Sorry, this is a cube, and that's also a cube. So I'm going to really focus on those real quick. Now, 12 does break down to 2 times 6 and 3 times 4, but none of those are cubes. And we're dealing with cube roots here. So I'm going to move the 27 up front. I'm also going to move this r to the 3rd up front. I'm going to leave the 12 and the r squared there because I'm organizing and because this way it's going to make things better for me. Now, 27 is the same thing as 3 to the third. So I have to remember that. What is the third root of 27? It's 3. What is the third root of r to the third? It's just r. Those are the only two things that you can take the cube root of. Now, in here, we can't break down the 12 anymore. No cubes are there. So the 12 stays. R squared is less than r to the third. The exponent is less than 3. So r squared stays right in there. All right, so that's how we deal with the variables there and there. Now, on number 8, we're dealing with the fifth root of things here. So I know, and hopefully you do too, because you have that chart, that 625 is the same thing as 5 to the 4th power. So there's x to the third, and then negative 10 is the same thing as negative 1 times 5 times 2, and then I have x to the 6th. So I'm going to strategically combine some of these. 5 to the 4th times 5 is 5 to the 5th. Just still underneath the 5th root there. Negative 1, I'm going to remember that right there. Then I have x to the 3rd times x to the 6th. That'll be x to the 9th. And then I have a 2. Okay. Now there's one more step I have to do, or a couple more steps actually. Here's the problem. All right, now that 9 on the x to the 9th here, you can't just do anything with that. You have to break that down. So I'm going to do a couple steps in one here. I'm going to go ahead and work on those. The 5th root of 5 to the 5th is 5. So 5 comes out. The 5th root of negative 1 is negative 1. So that would be a negative 5 right there on the outside. Okay? So currently, that's what I have. Now, this is still the 5th root of, and there's a 2 that's going to stay in there. And this x to the 9th, I'm going to break down into x to the 5th and x to the 4th. Because you have to have one of the x to the 5ths out of there. So then, this negative 5 is still hanging out. The 5th root of x to the 5th is x. Can't do anything with that, can't do anything with that. So the 2 and the x to the 4th stay inside. And you have to remember that this is still a 5th root there. So that's going to be your simplified radical there. Now I'm going to try and do this. Clear all the strokes. Nice. Scroll. All right, so we're doing... See here, I'll do number 10. How about number 10? So I'm just going to go a long way with this. Let's break 12 and 108 down real quick. Factor trees. 12 breaks down into 3 times 4, and that breaks down into 2 and 2. So 12 is the same thing as 3 times 2 squared. 108. If we did that, that's the same thing as 2 times 54. 54 is the same thing as 9 times 6. 9 is the same thing as 3 times 3. 6 is the same thing as 3 times 2. So then 108 is the same thing as 2 squared times 3 to the 3rd. So when I write these down, when I break these down, because I don't want to deal with the bigger numbers here. No thanks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down like that. So 12 is the same thing as 3 times 2 squared with an n to the 4th on it. 108 is the same thing as 2 squared times 3 to the 3rd with an n to the 5th with it. All right, so let's bank these real quick. 3 times 3 to the 3rd is going to be 3 to the 4th. 2 squared times 2 squared is 2 to the 4th. N to the 4th times n to the 5th is going to be n to the 9th. And this is still under the 4th root. Okay, so two things appear real quickly here. The 4th root of 3 to the 4th is 3. The 4th root of 2 to the 4th is 2. And then I'm going to work on this 4th root of n to the 9th. I'm going to break it down to n to the 8th times n. Because we want to number this divisible by 4. So 3 times 2 is 6. What is the 4th root of n to the 8th? That should be n squared. Because 8 divided by 4 is 2. And this would be the 4th root of n left in there. Kind of a tricky problem there, but that's what we end up with. All right, let me go ahead and dink. All right. So let me go ahead and tackle, I use that word figuratively, number 11. All right, so let's do this whole thing here. 75 is the same thing as 25 times 3. No, I'm not going to do that. Hang on. 75 is the same thing as 25 times 3, but I'm going to write that as 5 squared times 3. And then b squared. Great. 25 is the same thing as 5 squared, and then b squared in there. So I'm going to go ahead and work with this first. That'll be third root of 5 to the 4th, because 2 plus 2 is 4. And then I still have that 3, but now I have a b to the 4th. So now I have to break some of these things down to make them easily take the third root of, or cube root of. So this is the third root. Now this 5 to the 4th, I'm going to break that down just like a variable into 5 to the 3rd times 5. That 3 is still there, and the b to the 4th, I'm going to break it down the same way. B to the 3rd times b. So now the third root of 5 to the 3rd is 5. I can take that out. The third root of b to the 3rd is b. I can take that out. What am I left with inside here? I'm left with a 5 times 3 times b. So my final answer is going to be 5b with the third root of 15b inside. That's how that works. Okay. Then, all right, let's go ahead and go after it here. This times this. So this would be the third root. Now, negative times negative is a positive. That'd be 100 v to the 6th. Now, can we take the third root of 100? No. And we can't mess with any of its factors either. So the 100 is just going to stay inside. Now, we can take the third root of v to the 6th, though. The third root of v to the 6th is v squared. So v squared pops out with the third root of 100 being left in. Kind of a weird problem there, but good to see an example of it.